So these resources are all around the topic of science and innovation in the kindergarten classroom. So when we think of this topic, we can think of the problem solving and innovating frame. And if we break apart the main parts of it, we see the inquiry process and the technological problem solving process. So that's what the resources that you see here are all about. So when we met together as a team, we outlined some key principles that we wanted to make sure were brought out in these resources. So the first one was that these resources would use an inquiry-based learning process, and it would place the child, their voice, and their questions at the center of the entire resource. So that means that even though you may see a certain book or question being represented in the resource, we wanted to make sure that the resource could be varied based on the questions or interests that the children in your class have. The second key principle that we wanted to highlight was that this resource would consider invitations for learning and use those as a standalone learning opportunity, but also something that could be developed into a full-blown inquiry or design problem. The third key principle is that the 4 frames would really inform the planning and implementation for the invitations for learning and design problems that you see here. So you'll really see a link back to the program document and the 4 frames. And the final key principle is that we wanted to highlight how noticing and naming the learning can be done in a developmentally appropriate way and be used for documenting and really making student thinking visible. So we created 4 resources that were based around the inquiry process. So here we see some topics that were used just to show how you might start an inquiry and develop an inquiry around this topic. But again, this could be modified based on whatever the children in your classroom are interested in or whatever you find around you that might relate to these areas. And in the resources, it also talks about how you will use documentation to plan next steps. And it really offers a transdisciplinary approach to the inquiry process so that you can tie in math, you can tie in literacy, you can tie in science. All of the expectations are really put together in a transdisciplinary way. And then we've also created 4 resources that focus on that technological problem solving process. So these resources are using a picture book to really spark that design thinking process. And then it offers opportunities for children to build prototypes with different building materials, woodworking materials, and then opportunities for them to test, talk about what happened, redesign, and really build that knowledge as a classroom community to help to solve a problem.